Welcome to the season premiere of the Upstate Hoops Podcast. We're less than 24 hours away from the first game of 2013-14 Syracuse Basketball as Cornell visits the Dome on Friday night. And we'll be with you every Thursday night live at 10 o'clock right through the last game of the season, hopefully early April, that might be good. I'm Jim Sinicropi. I'm joined in studio tonight by my co-host, a man who was once recruited by Paul Evans at Pittsburgh, but ended up going to William & Mary, where he still holds the mark for most three-pointers by a freshman. Is that accurate, Matt Verkey?
It is. That is accurate. Paul Evans. Yeah, I was going to go to Pitt or William & Mary. I bet you not too many people, final schools came down to those two, but that was it.
But and then you hold the freshman three-point shooting record at William & Mary, still to this day.
Yes.
Which is surprising, because wasn't the line further away back when you played?
No.
Or no, it was closer.
It was closer. It was 19-9.
How many three-pointers?
My freshman year?
Yeah.
45 or so.
Nice.
Not a ton.
Enough
for the freshman record, I guess.
Yep. And then, of course, via telephone.
Maybe 52.
In Cincinnati, our resident college hoops guru. He does not hold the freshman three-point shooting record at Richmond, where he went to school, but he's with us tonight via telephone. Brad Conner, how you doing?
Good, guys. Happy College Basketball Eve to both of you.
It is nice to be back. I like to golf in the summer, but, you know, when the weather turns cold, college basketball is certainly something I look forward to. So I like winter just as much as summer. And we got a great team this year. So the Upstate Orange Podcast is brought to you by Generations Bank, with locations in Auburn, Geneva, Phelps, Seneca Falls, Union Springs, and Waterloo. Be sure to check out their mobile banking app or visit them online at mygenbank.com. And Seneca Meadows, responsible waste management for the next generation. Learn more online at senecameadows.com. And by our good friends at Madej, Miras, and Ricky, your hometown personal injury attorneys. If you've been injured and deserve compensation, call the Finger Lakes Personal Injury Hotline at 315-568-0911 or visit them online at madejmirasandricky.com. Excuse me, just madejmirasricky.com. And some changes to the format this year, Verk. This is our second full year of just doing the Upstate Orange Podcast. And we'll be doing some different segments this year to kind of keep things moving along and frame the discussion. So I think right now I want to kick it off with the segment we're going to kick it off with every week, and it's called Big Five Questions. And
Let's do it.
I'm going to ask you guys some questions, and we're going to talk about it.
All right.
So question one. Can Tyler Ennis replace Michael Carter-Williams as point guard and lead the Orange back to the Final Four as a true freshman? What do you think, Verk?
Yes.
Short answer, yes.
Yeah, he. I haven't seen a ton of this kid play, but he's steady. I know you love him.
I do.
I know you don't think it's going to be an issue, but I think I don't think he's going to be the problem in the backcourt. I'm a little worried about the two guard position this year, but Tyler Ennis, from everything I've seen. He seems to have a lot of character. He might not blow you away, make the big plays that Michael Carter-Williams made, but he's not going to make the big mistakes, hopefully, that MCW made a few times last year. And Carter-Williams struggled last year with a shot. And, he struggled at times during the year, but, obviously, he's lighting it up in the pros now, and he's a big talent. He's a big talent to replace, and, hopefully Ennis is up for the challenge.
Yeah, I agree with you, Verk. Last year, a lot of times we were so upset with Michael Carter-Williams throughout the course of the season. Bad shot selection, maybe looking to shoot first too much, and then of course the incident at Lord and Taylor. There was a lot of negativity, but the reason we went to the Final Four last year was Michael Carter-Williams above anybody else. He really put it together, played great, and the team defense. Brad, what do you think? Can Tyler Ennis do as a freshman what MCW did as a sophomore and lead us back to the Final Four?
Short answer is no, I don't think so. And the reason why, I think, is on the defensive side. I think Michael Carter-Williams will probably go down as the best defensive guard that this program has ever had. And Tyler Ennis, he's probably 6 foot, maybe 6'1". He doesn't have quite the range from what I would expect on defense. I don't think the zone will be as tough with him at point. Offensively, I think he can probably do just as much. But keep in mind, too, Carter Williams had a year under his belt, too. He played 10 minutes a game his freshman year. You hope the learning curve is steep for Ennis, and he hits the ground running, because there's really no real other viable options at point. If this team wants to make a Final Four run, it's Ennis or bust, really.
And I tell you, I've looked at Tyler Ennis now in 5 games, or 6 games, 3 games in Canada and the 2 exhibition games, and I'm really excited. He plays under control. He has a better outside shot than Carter Williams. He's a pass-first guy with really no deficiencies in his game that a normal freshman would have. And again, this is against some good college competition from Canada. So take that for what you will. It's not ACC talent. It's not Big East talent, but he's under control. He sets guys up. He carries himself in such a way that he looks more like a senior than a freshman.
I think, I agree with both of you. I think Ennis is capable. I think, what Brad related to was, Carter Williams had a year to kind of take things in and kind of watch. He sat behind Scoop and Brandon there for a year. And, this year he doesn't have a 4-year starter and a Brandon Trish next to him like Michael Carter Williams did. Brandon could also play the point, very capable of bringing it up the court. And I haven't seen that. I don't really think Cooney's that, obviously not that type of guard that Brandon Trish was as far as ball handling is concerned. We're talking Banjay. Is that how
Benajay, yeah.
Benajay. He hasn't really proven to me that he's going to be that, secondary ball handler either. So Ennis is kind of on his own out there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's Ennis or bust. But my answer is yes. I got a lot of faith in Tyler Ennis. And the other thing is, I think he's in a strange way a better college point guard than Carter Williams was. And I also think he's the type of guy who's going to be here for a few years. Even if Ennis has a big year this year, I don't think he's the NBA type of fits that NBA mold the way Carter Williams does. So they're different games, but NBA to college, and I got a lot of faith in Tyler Ennis, and I'm excited. But we'll see what the season brings as the competition gets tougher, and we'll see how he reacts. There's obviously going to be some bumps in the road, but that leaves us to question number 2. On the other side of the coin, we got C.J. Fair, senior, 4-year senior, snubbed in the preseason All-American team selection. And so my question to you guys is, do you think C.J. Fair will be a first or second team All-American selection at the end of the year? What do you think, Brad?
As much as I'd like for that to be the case, I don't think so. And the reason why is what we've seen in this offseason and leading into this season is the narrative is all about the freshmen. This is the greatest freshman class in history for Kentucky and for everybody else. And Duke has their freshmen and Kansas has their freshmen. And those are the guys that are getting all the hype. And keep in mind that the All-American teams are nationally selected. You've got guys out west that probably see 1 or 2 Syracuse games a year. He will be first team ACC, no question about it. There's a good chance he'll be ACC Player of the Year because those are the guys that are voting for that are seeing every ACC.
How
game.
can you be ACC Player of the Year?
Are seeing 5 or 6 games at best.
How can you be ACC Player of the Year though and not be a first or second team All-American?
Well, he's ACC Preseason Player of the Year, but he's not first or second team Preseason All-American.
Yeah, that's true.
I just think there's so much hype about these freshmen this year. And that tends to be what sways the All-American voting is hype, really, which is unfortunate for a guy like CJ who's paid his dues and probably deserves it as much as anybody. But, I still expect him to have a fantastic year.
What do you think, Verk?
I don't think he makes All-American this year. I think he has a great year. I think he's in the running for ACC Player of the Year, but I just don't see him making first or second team All-American. Although I don't really agree looking at the AP All-American team when you got Mitch McGarry on there who, he played – he had a nice 8-game stretch last year, but he really didn't play that much going into the tournament, and he's pick to make first team All-League, and I would take C.J. Fair over Mitch McGary personally. So, I think he has a shot. I think Syracuse needs to win a lot of games. A lot of this has to do with how well Syracuse does, and and how well, going back to Tyler Ennis, how well, if the backcourt struggles, I think it's going to put more pressure on Fair and make his job a lot harder if those guys don't come through as well.
That's true. On the other side of the coin, though, Tyler Ennis is going to set up C.J. Fair better than Michael Carter-Williams did, and C.J. Fair, when you stay for your senior year, that is a rarity in basketball to a player of his caliber, and he's gotten better every year, and I think that's going to improve one more year. He's got a better outside shot. He's he's got one of the softest shots anywhere on the court in all of college basketball. He seems to always get a lot of rolls. He's going to get good rebounding numbers this year. I would say that he's going to be probably a 16-7 guy.
Yeah, I would agree with those numbers.
Yeah.
And I think he made a great decision to come back. I don't see him being a great pro. I think I think he'll make a roster and stuff like that. I just, he's not a real big guy, for the NBA type of game, and he doesn't shoot it extremely well from the outside at this point. But
well, I don't think he has NBA range.
No.
But from what I've seen so far in this preseason, his shot's better than last year, and it was good last year.
Yeah.
Percentage-wise, he was the best three-point shooter on the team last year, but he didn't have as many attempts, obviously, as Sutherland.
Sure.
And even Carter-Williams. But this year, he's going to take more of them, and from what I've seen, he may be our best three-point shooter, period, this year. So it depends. Maybe
not a lot of competition there.
Well, it depends. Well, that remains to be seen. Go ahead, Brad.
I think the risk with C.J. Fair this season is teams are going to key on him like he's never been keyed on before. In the past, they've had multiple weapons. You had Sutherland out there who opened the defense up. You had Carter Williams who you had to respect. Right now, Ennis is a freshman. Beyond Ennis, beyond C.J. Fair, who does the defense focus on? So C.J. is going to get
Jeremi
the best
Grant.
of every defense thrown at him. He's probably going to get
true.
doubled most of the season. He's got to be able to prove that he can counter that.
Yeah,
Never had that before.
He will be the focus of opposing team defenses, though. But you better not sleep on Jeremi Grant. You better not sleep on Trevor Cooney. You better not sleep on Tyler Ennis or a lot of the other options that we have. We're really deep, and I suppose that brings me to our next question. Question 3: how is Coach Boeheim going to manage his front court players? Specifically the centers. How do you get them all minutes, considering you already have Jeremi Grant coming off the bench? How is he going to manage this? Who's going to be the odd man out? Who's going to be the guy that's in there at the end of the game? What do you think, Verk?
I think it's going to be a lot of what we saw last year. I see Coleman and Christmas starting together, and Jeremi Grant coming in. Before the first TV timeout at the 16-minute mark, I see Jeremi Grant coming in. I think this team needs Jeremi Grant and C.J. Fair on the floor together at the 3 and the 4, just because I think they're limited offensively at the guard spot this year, and they need more scoring. And Coleman and Christmas together don't provide a lot of scoring from the 4 and 5. I think they're going to need their 4-man, Jeremi Grant to score, and he's capable. He's looking at a breakout year this year, we hope, and I think obviously Ennis is going to play a huge part in this year's success, but I think Jeremi Grant really needs to be a 14-8, 14-9 guy for this team to be successful.
Yeah, I think it will be. What do you think, Brad? Who's the odd man out in the front court? Who's going to be sitting?
I think Christmas is going to be again. As much as I'd like to think he's improved, we may have seen the best of that guy. Really, like Burke said, it could be very easily a situation like last year. He's plays for the first 4 minutes and then comes out. I think Coleman will get more time this year than he did last year. He's slimmed down a little bit, so his stamina is going to be better. I think he's going to be stronger with the ball, although I'm not sure that's happened in the games, the exhibition games. But he'll be a better force on offense than Christmas will. I don't know. Until we have evidence that the light's gone on with Christmas, I think he's probably the odd man out in my mind.
Yeah, one thing that I'm confident about is that 3 minutes left in the game, at Cameron or against Indiana in the Dome or in Maui, you're going to see Bai Musakita in the center of the zone. I don't think you're going to see Christmas or Coleman in there.
Yeah, I think we saw it last year in the tournament. He's kind of that defensive anchor on the team. He does a great job of directing the players where to be, and he had some huge games last year for Syracuse, and brings a great amount of energy to the game, and maybe not as physically gifted as Christmas or Coleman, but he's been there. He's a senior, and he's going to get a lot of time at that 5 spot.
I got to tell you what I think about it. Go ahead, Brad.
Yeah, I would love to see in the late game. I'd love to see Ennis and CJ in the backcourt. CJ playing the 2 and have Grant at 3, Coleman 4, Key to 5. I think that really complements the inside out game, and I think CJ's got that versatility. He could probably go to the backcourt occasionally, and it puts Cooney probably on the bench. But I think that gives you a strong defensive team. The zone's going to be ridiculous if you've got CJ out front, and I think Boeheim's going to probably use that option from time to time.
Well, I think that the reason why I got a good outlook for all these guys is because there's a little less pressure on them this year on Raheem Christmas than there was last year, because there is so many options. I can see Coleman having a good game, and then the next game Christmas having a good game, and then the next game the two of them combining for a decent numbers, and Keita's reliable, and actually Keita's pretty much the heart of the team and the captain on defense, so we don't really talk about him much, but so I think with the 3 of them, including other guys to help with rebounding and Grant and Fair, a little bit of the pressure's off on specifically Christmas, who people have such high expectations for, he never seems to achieve. So I think with the depth that we have and the fact that we're not really relying on any one of those guys to carry the load of the front court, that I think that it's going to work out great. So and of course I usually have a positive outlook, which brings us to question number 4. We all know Tyler Ennis is going to log a ton of minutes. That's been the talk of the preseason. Ennis is going to play 38 minutes a game, so we know that. But are any other of the freshmen going to see any time this year? We got Ron Patterson. We got I'm not including Michael Benajay in here. He's not a freshman. I'm talking about Patterson, B.J. Johnson, or Tyler Roberson. Of those 3 guys, who's going to see the time?
I would have to say Patterson has the best opportunity just because of the lack of depth in the backcourt. He's supposedly the best shooter of the group and capable of playing that 2-guard position, which I think is, Cooney didn't make any claims to that in my mind with his play last year. Benajay hasn't exactly lit it up. I think there's room for him to maybe get in there and steal 15, 20 minutes a game from those guys. Obviously, if he is able to grasp everything that's going on as a freshman, which obviously is a hard thing to do. But, those other guys are forwards, and Syracuse is kind of loaded at forward. When you're talking, C.J. Fair is a 35 to 38-minute guy. Grant's going to play 30 to 35 minutes, and then you got Coleman filling in there. I just don't know where, those guys could see some spot minutes when needed. But, I'd have to say I'd go with Patterson to see some time this year.
Yeah, and they say, Verk, that and from what I've seen, he looks great in the zone already. He's super quick. He's fun to watch. Just watch him play basketball at the top of that zone defense. And I think that alone is going to give him some time, especially when a few guys miss. I can see Benajay or Cooney missing some assignments in the zone and Boeheim giving him the hook and putting Patterson in there. So I think it'll be Patterson. I would have said B.J. Johnson a couple months ago after the games in Canada, because he seemed like he could provide a scoring punch off the bench. But the 2 exhibition games this fall, he hasn't shot well. But he could also play the 2. More of a natural 3, though. And Roberson, I think, might be the best of the bunch. But in a crowded front court, big guys usually take a little longer to develop. So I don't know, Brad. What do you think? You agree with me and Verk on Patterson, or you got something else, another outlook on this?
No, I agree with you guys. Just purely on the rotation and what's going to be needed. And the previous question we talked about all the sort of the log jam in the front court, and I think that's going to be difficult for Roberson or Johnson to crack the rotation. But I do think Patterson's got an opportunity. because there isn't as much depth in the backcourt, and if Cooney struggles again, and Benajay's not what he's been advertised to be, then yeah, I can see Patterson has a real opportunity. I mean, he's not going to be a huge scorer this season and log huge minutes, but I think he's going to be one of these spot guys that you can see for 10, 12 minutes a game and hold his own out there, especially on the defensive side.
Yeah, Patterson reminds me almost of a Pittsburgh Panther type of guard, just from watching him, which isn't necessarily I think he'd be a great man-to-man defender, and we don't normally have a lot of great man-to-man guys here at Syracuse. Maybe the last great one was Jason Hart. That was a little while ago, but
last time they actually played man.
Yeah. It's funny if you watch some old YouTube videos of Syracuse in big games, including the 1987 national championship game against Indiana. They played a lot of man-to-man, which of course now we'll never see it again, at least as long as Boeheim's coaching.
No.
But all right, guys. Question 5, and every year we look at our underclassmen this time of year and think, oh, we got 2 or 3 years left with this guy, or Deion Waiters goes pro, Michael Carter-Williams goes pro, Fab Melo goes pro. I think the only real candidate for that this year is Jeremi Grant. So let me ask you this, Brad. Is this Jeremi Grant's final year in a Syracuse University uniform?
I kind of think it is. I think his dad is an NBA guy, his uncle is an NBA guy.
Which means they're rich. He doesn't need the money, right?
He doesn't need the money. It's a good point. I think, though, he's the NBA drafts on potential. We all know that. And I think nobody on this roster has as much potential at the NBA level as Jeremi Grant does. Tyler Ennis, Verk said it earlier, I'm not sure, he's probably going to be a better, or you said, Jim, that he's going to be a better college guard than a pro guard. Size-wise, I'm not sure. He's not a Carter-Williams that can stack it up and as point in the NBA as easily. But I think Jeremi Grant's built for the NBA. If he puts on a little bit more weight, maybe that could be the only thing that might hold him back. Is just he might get bounced around a little bit. But I think they'll see at the end of this year that his game will be ready. It's just can he stand the rigor and the physicality of it.
Yeah, what do you think, Verk?
I've thought about this question for a while, and I gotta see. I guess the year depends. He made a good percentage of his threes last year, and I see him as a 3-man in NBA, and he needs to work on a lot of stuff. And he didn't get a ton of minutes last year, so I'm really excited to see him play this year. I've heard a lot of good things. They said he's had a great offseason, and he's looking to have a breakout year this year. Based on potential, it seems like he's probably going to be on the, a lottery pick. But maybe he decides, this draft is supposed to be loaded with all these incoming freshmen that Brad was talking about earlier. So, maybe he, even if he does have a pretty good year, he's going to be a mid to late first rounder. He decides to come back when maybe the following year is a little bit weaker of a draft, and he can break that into the lottery.
Yeah, I guess we'll probably know the answer to this by February 1st. We'll probably know one way or another which way he would be leaning by how well he's performed, and of course by what all the draft projections say. So, well, it all starts tomorrow night, 7:00. Cornell Big Red visits the Dome. They're not looking too good this year, Verk. Cornell, that is. We were talking earlier today when we had lunch today. We were talking.
Yeah, they're down. They lost a lot of guys who they thought were going to have coming back. They had a guy transfer out to Purdue who's now starting at Purdue. And this was supposed to be a year where they took that next step and contended for the Ivy League title. But some guys left for personal issues. They lost 3 or 4 guys who were projected starters towards the end of last year. So it's another rebuilding year for Cornell. So I look for this to be a easy SU victory tomorrow night.
So they got the game Friday night. Also, before we come back next Thursday night, they're going to play again on Tuesday against Fordham. That's a 7:30 game at the Dome. And then the following week, it's Colgate on Saturday night and St. Francis 2 days later on a Monday night. That St. Francis game being the first round of the Maui Invitational. One of those games that even if you lose, you're still going to Hawaii. And when we get to Hawaii on November 25th, it looks like we're going to be playing Minnesota. And then if we beat Minnesota, the winner of the Arkansas-California game, or the loser if we should lose, potentially 3 straight games in Maui over Thanksgiving. And then come back to the Dome.
No Chaminade on the lineup, unfortunately.
Is that true? No Chaminade this year?
No, just not on the.
Oh, not for us. Yeah, not for us.
Now, could they possibly play Baylor as well, or are the games already?
Oh, no. I actually. Do you know for sure, Brad, what the lineup is in Maui?
Yeah, well, I mean, you had it right. So it's Arkansas or Cal in the semis, and then whoever from the other side of the bracket in the finals. So it could be Baylor's on the other side of that bracket,
okay.
I think, right? So they could be in the finals.
And then we host Indiana on December 3rd in the Dome, which is going to be a fantastic game. And then St. John's at Madison Square Garden on December 15th. So I don't think we've had a schedule, November-December schedule quite like this in a long time. And so it's really excited to jump right into it. And then, of course, our first game is an official member of the ACC on January 4th when Miami comes to the Dome. So a lot of different things this year. Going to step aside for just 60 seconds, and when we come back, it's going to be our first edition of Connor's Corner Orange Trivia of the season. We'll be right back. And welcome back to the Upstate Orange Podcast season premiere. Got some new segments this year. Second half of the show, we're going to hit it up with some trivia. Then we're going to do our list of the week segment. We're going to give our actually, you know what? Did you guys do preseason power rankings?
I didn't, but I could give one.
I got my 5.
Yeah, okay. All right, so we'll do our first preseason power rankings, our first power rankings of the year. Some quick bold predictions, and then 2 more quick topics for the road, and that should be about 60 minutes. You may have noticed in the last commercial, Finger Lakes One TV, you can watch it on your computer, on your television, on your tablet, on your smartphone this year. So, and you know, here we go. There we go. You're watching live on my phone, on my smartphone. You know, if you're connected to Wi-Fi or you got a strong cellular signal, you can tune in live on the smartphone, or you can watch it on demand on the smartphone. Just head over to fingerlakes1.tv or subscribe to us on YouTube. Subscribe to fingerlakes1.com on YouTube. Subscribe to that channel. And, of course, we're on iTunes and Stitcher.com. All the places you'd expect to find us. So, Brad, I am very excited to try my hand at some trivia for the first time of this season. I'm assuming you've spent all summer deciding on the perfect question for the debut episode.
Yeah, I've had 7 months to figure out my trivia, and then I basically just did it in the last 2 hours. But this should, you guys should have a good time with this one. So Syracuse is ranked in this current AP poll, preseason poll. Are you guys familiar with where Syracuse is currently slotted?
8.
Yes,
8
7, 8
is correct. What's the highest preseason ranking that Syracuse has ever earned in the Associated Press poll?
I'm going to say 2. We were 1 once in the Sports Illustrated preseason poll, Pearl Washington's junior year. But I'm going to say we've never been a preseason 1. And, you know, we may never be a preseason 1 because, you know what, they just don't give it to us. Look at the top 5 now. Look at Kentucky and Duke. That's based on freshmen that have never played. Now, granted, we got Tyler Ennis as a freshman too, but we're pretty stacked. Duke's top 2 players this year are freshmen. You know, Kentucky's top 2 or 3 players are freshmen. So who knows? Look at Kentucky was number 1 last year And Nerlens Noel was a guy that we wanted to get at Syracuse pretty badly until he took his talents to the Bluegrass State. But I'm going to say never, Brad. That's my answer. I don't know about you, Verk. You think we ever won?
I'm going to agree with you.
So what do you guys say the highest ranking was?
3.
I'm going to say 2. I'm going to say 2. And
wrong. Syracuse was ranked preseason number 1 in 1988, coming off of their championship game loss to Indiana.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, the only people we lost
and
off.
they went and lost the preseason tip-off tournament.
North Carolina,
first
yeah.
game of the season, and that was that.
Yeah, that's funny. We were number 1. Yeah, I guess the only people we lost off that team were Greg Monroe and Howard Trish. Right?
Right.
Cycly.
There was a lot of talent coming back, and Coleman was coming into his own, and Cycly was still there. Sherman Douglas was there. So, yeah,
Cycly was just a
stacked team.
Junior.
Team should have done a lot more in their tournament run.
Who was the shooting guard on that team? Was it Michael Brown?
Oh, 88. Good question. Might have been.
At least didn't he transfer mid-season, or was that after the season?
No, I don't think it was mid-season.
Sherman Douglas.
Stevie Thompson, I guess, would have, right?
Oh yeah, no kidding. He would have been the 3 on that team.
Matt Rowe, maybe.
Could be. Anybody got the internet around here? Orangehoops.net or .org,
I
whatever.
pulled up right here.
I just got to know.
Matt
I got to
Rowe,
know.
Stevie Thompson,
Matt Rowe?
the helicopter, Herman Hurried.
Oh yeah.
Earl Duncan, he didn't start more than he only started 4 games.
That was his freshman
Earl
year.
started 31 games that season as a sophomore, so it was probably him.
Huh.
Yeah,
Oh.
Preseason number 1.
Was it Keith Hughes?
Keith Hughes played 19 games as a sophomore that year, and then he transferred.
Well, along with Earl Duncan, they transferred to Rutgers.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, Earl Duncan was supposed to be the next Pearl, was what they said. He's going to be the next Pearl Washington, but it didn't work out, of course. That's
Worked out pretty well.
That's a lot to put on your shoulders, although I guess we're asking Tyler Ennis to be the next Michael Carter Williams. But I think Ennis is...
I'm going to build on that trivia.
Okay.
How many top 5 rankings do you guys think Syracuse has earned as a preseason going back in the Boeheim era? Preseason top 5.
Preseason top 5 Boeheim era. Well, I'm going to go back to the beginning of the Boeheim era and think of what teams might have possibly, had the chance to be top 5. And I think the first one in the Boeheim era that probably even had a chance would have been maybe Raphael Addison's junior or senior year, Pearl Washington's sophomore year maybe. I'm going to say 1985 was one. And then obviously the year that Brad mentioned, that coming off the Indiana game.
Coleman's senior year, I would imagine they were preseason top 5.
89, 90.
Yep.
Billy Owens.
3 years.
You guys have 3. Actually, Jim, you were 1 year off, but you're thinking along the very correct lines.
So what?
86, Pearl's junior year, they were preseason number 4.
Okay. And then the year they were number 1 is another one, and then Coleman's senior year. So
90, Coleman's senior year, they were preseason number 3.
Coleman, Owens, good team. Laurent Ellis maybe on that team? No, he was on the following year. 1, 2, 3. So that's it through 90. And I tell you what, the 90s, I don't think, unless it was early on in 91.
None in the 90s.
Yeah, I would say none in the 90s. And then coming into the 2000s, it would the year after the national title. I don't believe we were, because we lost Anthony, and so I would say no there. And last year, we were a preseason top 5. Right?
Last year, number 9.
Oh, wow. So we really earned it, and prior to that, I don't see any years we weren't, during the Johnny Flynn years, we certainly weren't. The Andy Routins, how about 2011? That was one time, I bet you. Even then, I bet you that team didn't get respect either. I'm going to say none.
Nope, 2011, 2012, Jim. That was a good call, and you stopped yourself. But yeah, they were preseason number 5 that year.
So only 5 times in the Boeheim era.
Scoop's senior year, when Chris Jones' senior year, when they only lost 3 times. They were number 1 at the end. Yeah, they were preseason 5.
So I gotta wonder then, how many times in the Boeheim era have we finished top 5?
I didn't research that, but I can tell you I did write down in the last 11 years, twice.
So in the last 11 years, 2 more times than they said that we would. Preseason, going by preseason. Or 1 more time. They said once we were preseason top 5, but twice we finished preseason top 5.
Yeah, 2012 they finished ranked 2nd. In 2010 finished ranked 3rd, both the number 1 seeds, and they both got knocked out of the tournament before the Final Four.
Yeah, well, the one year we won the national title, we were unranked preseason. 2003. Unranked preseason, straight to the national title.
It was actually ranked 29th, and also receiving votes 4 deep on that list. Pretty sad. They had no respect for Carmelo Anthony.
Yeah, well, again, he was a freshman, I suppose, but nowadays, if you're going to Kentucky, then you must be the best player, ever to walk the face of the earth. Or if you're going to Duke as a freshman, then I guess that's enough to make you preseason favorite in the ACC over Syracuse.
So just a couple of quick ones on that same topic. So, in the 38 years of the Boeheim era, this is his 38th season.
That's unbelievable.
How many teams have been preseason number 1? How many different programs?
Oh, in
38 years.
In 38 years. Well, Kentucky hasn't been as dominant in the preseason rankings as they have been as of late, but I'm going to say that they probably got 5. I would say that
this is what made me think about it, because I saw something in the paper on Friday when it came out that this was only the 3rd time that they've ever been preseason number 1, Kentucky, in the AP poll.
Wow,
mind-blowing to me. But
they never were that. They weren't that great.
Yeah.
I wonder one of those teams
96.
must have been 96. Must have been preseason number 1.
Yeah, 96. Before this season, 96 was the last team that was preseason number 1.
That
it was like 1980.
You got Georgetown with a few of those during the Ewing years, and even during probably the maybe even during the Alonzo Mourning or Iverson years.
St. John's might have one.
Yeah,
which team has the most?
Duke.
Boeheim era. So going in those 38 years, which team's been preseason number 1 the most?
It's got to be either Duke or Carolina. I'm going to say North Carolina because they had more in the 80s.
I'm going to say Duke.
You guys are number 1 and 2, and neck. Carolina has 8, and Duke has 7 in 38 years. So in 38 years, 15 of those 38 years had either Duke or Carolina preseason number 1. 3rd highest is the tie with Kentucky and Arizona, both with 3 preseason number 1s.
Lute Olson?
Yep. Indiana has 2. Kansas has 2. UConn twice. Michigan, UNLV twice. And then there's a handful that were once. Syracuse, Florida, Cincinnati, believe it or not, back in
Kenyon Martin.
1997. Arkansas, the Corliss Williamson era. Georgia Tech in 86 with Mark Price.
John Salley,
that team.
Mm-hmm.
Georgetown only once.
Wow, that's
in 85.
What about Houston?
Houston did not. And then Virginia with Ralph Sampson's senior year. And that's it. 16 teams.
So, elite company, I guess.
Yeah. And here's something fun. I looked at this, you guys. Out of the current ACC, which teams have never been ranked number 1, ever? Not even preseason, just ever.
Sure. Miami. This counts postseason because NC State, when they won it, they were number 1 at that point, right?
No, it doesn't count postseason.
Okay. So I'm going to say Boston College never. And when you say ever, how long are we going back here?
history of the poll. I mean, it's
Which is what, in the 60s?
let's see, I got it pulled up here. It's a lot. All polls. How many years are we talking? It says 1949.
1949?
49.
49, okay.
Virginia Tech, never.
Right.
Florida State.
Virginia Tech never. Virginia Tech's highest ranking ever is 8th. Never been ranked better than 8th.
Florida State, never.
Florida State never. They've gotten as high as 2nd.
Miami, never.
Miami never. They got as high as 2nd. That might have even been last year.
Yeah, I think it was.
Boston College, never.
Boston College, you're right. And it has never been ranked as high as 3rd is the highest they've been.
Worst program in college sports.
Yeah.
Maryland's been number 1. They had Len Bias.
What's funny is Maryland has not been number 1 ever.
Wow.
They won a national championship. They had Len Bias. They were never number 1.
Joe Smith?
Never number 1 in the nation.
So NC State, I'm going to say no. They probably, they were underdogs in that NCAA tournament. So.
Yeah, remember those teams back in the 70s? They had David Thompson. They won the championship.
Oh yeah, that's true. So they were number 1 back then.
They were, yeah.
Okay.
But I don't know if it was then or if it was like the Corciani and those guys in the 80s, but they were.
So who are we missing? Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's been number 1.
You're missing one. Pitt has been number 1.
Yeah. Notre Dame, but they've been number 1 too.
They were probably back in the Kelly
late
Tripucka
70s.
and Aguirre and those guys.
Yeah.
No, not Aguirre, but Kelly Tripucka and
Adrian Autry?
who else they had?
Or not Adrian.
Dantley.
Dantley.
Yeah.
Adrian Dantley.
What team are we missing? We got Duke, North Carolina. Wake Forest was number 1 when they had Tim Duncan.
Yep.
Okay.
No, they were number 1 when they had Chris Paul, actually.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I don't think they ever got number 1 with Duncan.
So, geez, I can't even remember. I'm missing a team here. What ACC team haven't we mentioned? Oh, Virginia.
When you think of an
They've
ACC
been number
team
1,
with
though.
no tradition at all, who do you think of?
They've been number 1. Boston College.
Aside from them.
Virginia Tech. We already said them, though. No tradition. ACC team. Georgia Tech, we mentioned, has been number 1. Florida State, Miami. I can't even think. We said Miami, though, right?
Clemson.
Oh, yeah, Clemson, man. How could I forget good old Clemson? They did beat us in the NIT semifinals in, like 5 years ago. But
They did. Give them credit for that. Clemson's been as high as 2nd, but never higher than that. And one amusing fact that I looked up the old Big East too. South Florida has never been ranked, not even 25th.
wow, I thought 2 years ago, I thought that they might have been ranked at some point.
That was their football team.
Well,
I think they're the only Big East team that has been ranked. Old Big East.
well, Brad, that's some good trivia. As we all know that the only thing that really matters is preseason ranking. So it's nice to pull some of that back. But that is interesting. It really goes to show you. It's an indicator of program strength, I suppose. Or just program the strength of the brand almost with the preseason. Obviously, if Syracuse and Duke both had similar caliber rosters, Duke's going to be ranked number 1. We're going to be ranked number 7. That's just the way it is. And that's the only thing about being in this ACC that has me fired up or excited is that I want to kick everybody's butt.
Well, what's nice now is they can prove it on the court. They never had the opportunity to really stack up with Duke. And it's always just based on reputation. This year they can actually prove it.
Except, don't you know that we're going to get screwed this year by the refs? Don't you know that it's going to be very difficult for us to win a championship this year? I just feel like the powers are going to be aligned against us, and time will tell. Time will tell. We'll have to see how these games are officiated, but if we're down in Cameron and it's a close game and there's a questionable call late, I guarantee it's not going our way. And if it gets down to the end of the year and we have a big game late with the ACC title on the line, it's going to be tough to overcome the officiating. I'm telling you. My good friend Ray Randall, huge NC State Wolfpack fan, has told me all about it for years, the way that everybody caters to Tobacco Road, specifically North Carolina and Duke, in that conference. And it's a difficult hill to climb. And as Yankees coming into the conference, it's going to be even worse for us. It's going to be hard. That's my prediction. But
I'm not sure. I'm all for the perception that there's a power axis around Chapel Hill and Durham, but I think if you believe in conspiracy theories, and I'm not sure I do, but if you do, and as it relates to ACC basketball, the best thing for the ACC is for Syracuse to win this league this year, because all it does is make that league that much stronger and create that much more depth and national perception of the league. You know, the ACC's been down. All last thing they need is just a continued dominance of Carolina and Duke. That's what they've had for the last 15 years, and everybody else has stunk.
But don't you think it's going to...
Syracuse is a big three.
I think
Syracuse knocks off the big boys at first. I mean, that creates a huge sense of rivalry all of a sudden that never existed before, and that makes the league that much stronger.
You might have a point.
I also think that, Boeheim commands respect. Having a coach who's been there for almost 40 years, I don't see... I just think that helps them.
Well, like I say, time will tell. You're right, Brad, about the fact that they want to, build this league up and create new rivalries, for TV money. And but this year in the ACC is no different than any other year. Now, there's more teams, but there's still 4, maybe only 3, really good teams, where in the Big East there was 5 or 6. And then also, if you go talk about good teams, the Big East would have 8 or 9. ACC would have 3. Just good tournament quality basketball teams. So now, they had Syracuse and Pitt and Notre Dame. That helps. When Louisville comes over next year, I think that's when things really change and that really becomes an elite conference. But again, I wish they would change the name of it, because it's half Big East and half ACC. It really, it's almost an even split. So it's more of a merger. But, we got to call it the ACC. But, I don't want to get into that right now. Time's running a little late. I want to move on to our List of the Week segment. And this will be a little different each week. This week, I basically I want you to check these off. I'm going to list some things. I want you, Verk and Brad, to check them off with a yes or a no. So, if you say check, that would indicate a yes. If you say yes, that would indicate a yes. Okay. So let's start. Syracuse basketball this year, we're going to start them easy. 20-win season?
Yes.
Check.
Top 5 ranking on January 1st?
No.
Check.
Which right now we're not. So that would mean we would probably win in Maui, probably beat Indiana. I mean, we can't lose more than one game, and I don't think we'd be top 5 if we lost even one game. So I don't know. That's tough. I don't.
So we're gonna beat St. John's, Villanova.
Oh yeah, I forgot about Villanova.
Baylor,
Indiana, Arkansas, Kansas,
Arkansas,
Arkansas, California, maybe Minnesota,
Fordham.
Yeah, Binghamton.
Well, what I'm banking on is there aren't a lot of dominant teams out there. And I think if Syracuse has 4 or 5 losses on March 1st, they'll be top 5.
On March 1st, I changed it on you, Brad, from the script. I said January 1st, and I was going to ask March 1st.
Oh, then no check on that one. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't know if I can check it either. But you know what? As good as we've been in November and December and in these preseason tournaments, and as high as I am on this particular team, I'm gonna give it a check. I'm gonna give it a check there. So how about on March 1st, Verk? Will they be top 5 by March 1st after almost a full season of ACC play?
I'm going to say no.
And Brad says, I'm going to say yes.
I just think the ACC sucks. I think Syracuse will have 2 or 3 losses in the ACC at the end of the season.
Okay, well, let me ask you this then. ACC regular season champs?
No.
No.
I'm going to say no because we're going to get screwed by the refs. ACC tournament champs. ACC tournament. God.
I'm going to check that one.
Freaking
We're going to win the
ACC
tournament.
stupid tournament. We're going to go down to Greensboro and win the tournament on Sunday afternoon.
Yep.
I'm going to say no.
Okay.
The home court advantage for Duke and Carolina down there.
And the officiating advantage. They'll let the game be close,
let's
Brad.
not forget Syracuse used to have the home court advantage every year in the Big East tournament. That's gone forever.
Yeah, but that's not our fault. That's not our campus. UConn and Rutgers are right there. We can't, and St. John's. We can't help it. If everybody loves us so much.
You don't have advantage at West.
So, okay, moving on. Number 1 seed in the NCAA tournament.
No.
Fair enough. Sweet 16.
Yes.
Yes.
Final 4.
No.
No.
Well, I'm going to check that one off. And and then, of course, the last one I was going to ask is national champs, which if they're not going to the Final Four, then I guess you're not going to check that one off. And it's tough for any team to say, yeah, I predict they're going to win a national championship this year, because look at some of our great teams as of late, the Onawaku team specifically.
Unless you're a Kentucky fan. Every Kentucky fan thinks their team's going to go 40-0 and win the national championship, and why even bother playing the season?
Okay, well, that was our list of the week segment. Be a little different each week. Let's move it on now. And, Brad, give me your preseason top 5 power rankings. Who do you think the top 5 teams in the country are right now, heading into the season?
Number 5, I have Oklahoma State.
Marcus Smart
could be the best player in the country that nobody's talking about because he's not a freshman.
Mm-hmm.
He's a sophomore, so apparently he flies under the radar now. But I think that guy's awesome, and I like them in the Big 12.
Okay.
North, I've got Louisville. The American Conference sucks, and they should be able to run the table. And for they'll be a top team all season.
UConn and Cincinnati.
They just aren't going to play anybody come conference time.
SMU.
Houston Cougars.
Central Florida.
Will play in that game.
Okay.
Number 3, I've got Michigan State. That's a veteran team, and the Big Ten's not very good, and so yeah, they'll be strong all season, I think. Number 2, as much as it pains me to say, I got Duke. I think that team is going to be great this year, and I can't wait for that game when they play Syracuse. But Jabari Parker's going to be fantastic. They've got the transfer Rodney Hood from Mississippi State. They've got some veterans coming back, Dawkins and Suleiman and Cook. They're strong. They've got a lot of depth, and they're going to be tough. And number 1, Kentucky. There's no avoiding it. That's probably a lock for most of the season, unless their freshmen just can't handle the big stage.
All right, gee, Brad, I didn't think you were so aligned with the national pollsters at the top there. I thought maybe there might be a surprise, but what do you got, Verk?
Creighton yet?
Creighton? You got Creighton in there?
Not yet.
Okay.
I'm going to go Louisville 1. Should I start from 5?
However you want.
I'm going to start at 1. I'm going to go Louisville number 1. I just like what they brought back. They got a junior college guard who's supposed to be fantastic. They lost the big guy Gordy Dang and Peyton Siva, but they bring a lot back. Ware's coming off the injury there. I like them 1. I like their I like teams that have some upperclassmen.
Yep.
I'm gonna go Michigan State 2, Kentucky 3, Duke 4. I'll go way out on a limb with VCU at number 5. This is supposedly their best team. They're gonna win a lot of games this year, and I see them being a top 10, top 5 team this year.
I drafted VCU in Birchwood.
Better than their Final Four team.
They're supposed to be loaded this year. They're deep, and you know how they play, and they're going to be very good.
And to be honest, the Atlantic 10 got easier with Xavier and Temple and Butler leaving, so
right.
It actually makes it the easier road for VCU to put up big numbers.
All right, guys, I got Duke 5, Kentucky 4. I got Kentucky 5, Duke 4, Michigan State 3, Louisville 2, Syracuse 1. And we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, you never know.
Listen, I love this team, guys. Everybody's little
I'm
concerned.
not loving this team.
We are deep. We are dynamic.
We're deep in the front court.
Well, okay. Well, that's
or the back.
Yeah, we'll talk about the backcourt depth before we get out of here. But quick, let's kick it over and give our bold predictions. It's just something that's going to happen before we get back together here next Thursday night. And we'll see how many of us are accurate. I'll lead it off. I say Trevor Cooney's going to have 8 3-pointers on the season by this time next week.
So this has to be a prediction for something that's going to happen next week, you're saying?
Well,
my prediction for the year was William Mary goes to the tournament this year.
Well, that's fine. That's a bold prediction.
The year of the child.
That is a bold prediction.
It's kind of like the VCU thing. Their league got a lot weaker with Old Dominion leaving and VCU's been gone, and so
I hear they got a great freshman 3-point shooter who's looking to get 53 this year.
They bring back 4 starters.
Okay.
From a terrible team.
That's a bold prediction.
Mason's out of that league too, right, Bert?
I don't know, to tell you the truth.
I thought Mason went to the A-10. I had to look that up, but I remember
that'd be great if they did.
Maybe next season.
We brought in some new teams as well, but they're not Old Dominion, VCU, and George Mason. So,
well, our producer Jeremy Hunt's going to write these down, and we'll see how we do next week. Brad, what's your bold prediction? Or we'll have to wait on that. We'll be married till the end of the year, but we'll keep track of all these predictions, and we'll see who shoots the best percentage. Brad, what do you got?
My bold prediction, in spite of my power rankings, I think Michigan State is going to beat Kentucky next Tuesday night.
That's Tuesday night, huh?
Michigan State.
It's awesome, guys. It's going to be Duke against Kansas, Michigan State, and Kentucky.
That's all Tuesday night?
That's all Tuesday night.
Maryland's playing in a pretty big game too, aren't they? Aren't they, Jeremy? Didn't you? UConn, Maryland's a game this week, so we don't have to wait long to see some big games. It's going to be awesome because I'm already a little sick of the NFL.
Hey, Brad, George Mason did leave the Colonial.
Yeah.
So
that was a good pickup for the A-10, but that hurts the Colonial.
We added Charleston.
Mary, though, probably.
But yeah, Charleston.
Charleston.
Yeah.
Bobby Kremen still coach them?
He does.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know that for sure, but I'm pretty sure he does.
Yeah. That makes him legitimate, I suppose.
Tell you, the old Big East is still going to be good.
Oh, it's going to be fantastic. They had Butler, Xavier, and they got Villanova, Georgetown, St. John's, Seton Hall, Providence. Providence.
They might have more ranked teams than the ACC at some point.
Oh, that's without a doubt. I think the rivalry's still there, which is going to be tough. I'm always going to root for the Big East.
You say Butler, Creighton.
Here's where it's going to struggle. Friday night, tomorrow night, Providence and BC. Ordinarily, you'd want Providence to kick the crap out of BC.
I still want.
Now? Do we care? How do we perceive that game?
I want Providence to kill BC. I don't care. I really don't care. You know what? It's going to take a few years before I start to get in that mindset. But when I'm looking at that game, I'm hoping Providence wins by 50.
So you'll be comparing Pitt. When Pitt plays Wake Forest, you'll be rooting for Pitt, obviously.
Right, yeah, no doubt. But when Wake Forest plays Georgetown or or Villanova, that's a tough one. But any Providence Boston College games, no problem. Providence is going to be good this year. They're going to be a surprise team, I think, nationally. So Bryce Cotton. All right, guys, let's move on to our final segment of the night, 2 for the road. And you mentioned these are kind of 2 questions in the same. So let's specifically start out with this one. Trevor Cooney was a huge bust last year as a redshirt freshman, according to what we expected from him or what we need, especially as a shooter. Are we going to see a different Trevor Cooney this year? What do you think, Verk?
No.
Verk is really anti-Cooney, so that's why I started with him.
I mean, different. I think he'll be better. I don't think he can get any worse than he played last year for the most part. If he can just make open threes, he'll be fine and not do anything else. But, I mean, there was times last year he'd be wide open, he'd airball it. And, he's got to be better, bottom line. And I'm not sold on him yet.
How about you, Bram?
I'm in the same camp. The only difference this year I think we'll see with Trevor Cooney is we'll actually take more threes than he did last year. Now, I think the one advantage he may have going into this year is that I think he probably forced it a lot last year, because he knew he was only going to get a couple of minutes. So as soon as he got in, he, jacked something up that probably wasn't a good shot and hit the side of the backboard or some stupid thing. And
he would also fumble it on a breakaway
a little bit more because he realizes he's a starter and he's going to get more time, and so maybe he just takes what the defense gives him rather than trying to force something that's not there.
Yeah, I think we will see a different Trevor Cooney, and I've seen it already in these exhibition games.
I want to see it in conference play.
I do too.
It's a whole different ball game.
But again, these Canadian teams are good teams. The atmosphere in the Dome is similar to an early season, Fordham game.
3 for 9 the other night. That's
it's not bad. The big thing though is his misses are not missing by much. His stroke looks better. He's straight up and down, nice arc, good rotation, landing soft on the rim.
He is the best warm-up shooter I've ever seen. He never misses.
I watched him make 12 in a row before when I was in the Dome for the first exhibition game there against Holy Family out of Philadelphia. But I also see him just being a more solid contributor across the board. At the top of the zone on defense, I think he's above average defensive player for us in the zone. I think he's got a lot more athletic ability than normally you give a guy like that who comes in as a shooter. He can jump. He's fairly quick.
He's a good athlete, no doubt.
And
he's got more athleticism than people give him credit for.
Sure.
So I think all in all, given the time that he's going to see more significant minutes, he's going to hit his stride. Obviously, the bad shooting last year was mostly mental. He's now the age of a college junior, playing in his sophomore year. And I think we're going to see a different Trevor Cooney, and we're going to have to, because the second half of Two for the Road here is, can we overcome the lack of depth at point guard? Because you can't find you can say outside shooting might be a deficiency of this team, but I think we're a little better than last year overall, even with losing Southern. Southern wasn't that great of a shooter. I mean, he was streaky. So, but the one thing that it has me worried, is that we're putting all this on our freshman point guard, and if he should happen to get hurt, Benajay has been handling the backup point guard duties less than spectacular, and I don't blame him. He's listed on the roster as a forward. He never played point guard in his life until last year when he played in practice against Michael Carter-Williams. They put Benajay at the point guard, and now he's our backup point guard for all intents and purposes. The only other people that possibly could do it might be, Ron Patterson. I think we agree Cooney's not a backup point guard. We're not going to see him very much. So it's by default it goes to Benajay, and he'll get better and more comfortable with it. But it's certainly a deficiency in this team is our lack of depth at point guard. And can we overcome it, Verk? How do we do it? How does Boeheim manage that situation?
You hope Tyler Ennis is the real deal. That's all you can do. If he's not, it's going to be a long year. If he gets hurt, it's going to be a long year. He could have went out and recruited another guard who could dribble. Would have helped.
We tried to get a transfer from
and I know they signed – it's kind of a tough situation. You got Ennis, and then they got another point guard signed for next year already.
Caleb Joseph, yeah.
So, who's going to want to go and sit kind of behind those two guys the next 4 years? It'd have to be somebody who probably knows he might never start a game there to be a backup point guard for 4 years or whatever, So it is what it is now, and we have one true point guard on this team and not much beyond that, and let's hope he's great.
He's a good one.
I'll tell you what, guys, the rest that I think with the lack of depth at point guard, the situation that we're going to find this year with the hand checking rule is going to be enforced a lot more closely, and there's going to be a lot more fouls called than we've ever seen before. And until teams adjust, you're going to see guys foul out. You're going to see a lot of 3-4 foul, having to not play defense, or I could see Tyler Ennis fouling out a couple of games, and then what do you do? I could see everybody on this team falling out a couple of times. The depth in the front court's fine, but in the back court, I think that's a real risk. You're guarding the guy on the ball, and you're hand checking him normally, or you got your hand on his shirt.
That's an advantage. That's a little advantage for us, though, in the zone, though, Brad. If they're going to be calling that closer, a zone team has a little advantage there over a man-to-man team.
True. It's a good point. Yeah, but I think on the penetration, you got to stay off the guy. I think, and that's going to be a problem if somebody's trying to split the guys up top on the zone. You make any contact at all, it's foul. Especially in the ACC, it's a finesse league.
True. So speaking of that, we got Michael Benajay. We haven't talked too much about him. We didn't know much about him other than he was a McDonald's All-American recruit at Duke who didn't play too much his freshman year and transferred, sat a year out, and now here he is all of a sudden. And boy, lucky for us, with our our lack of depth at guard, that we got a guy like him. He hasn't been too impressive in these exhibition games, though. But again, he's playing out of position. It's difficult to go from a guy who other people set you up for shots to be the guy setting up other people for shots and still trying to find your own shot. So I think he's getting into it. He's a great athlete. He's a big guard at the top of the zone. He looked good. He scored one basket against Ryerson in the exhibition, and it was taking it to the basket. And I think that's what he's going to need to do. I think he's going to need to take it to the basket. He's going to need to hit his open threes when he has it, but not force them. He's going to need to play strong defense. And I like the kid. I like his outlook. Jerry McNamara says he's a hard worker. Has nothing but great things to say about him. Always trying to get better, especially in this role as point guard. So I think that we're going to see Benajay improve throughout the year, and that's going to help our lack of depth at overall guard, and he's going to have to bear the brunt of being backup point guard unless a guy like maybe Ron Patterson can step up and do it, or maybe Nolan Hart. Justin Thomas played point guard for us in one of the biggest games in school history.
Yep.
At the end of that UConn 6 overtime game, so you never know. Come on, Nolan, keep working hard in practice. So, anyways, guys, it's great to be back here in studio with you again for our first of what's probably going to be in 20, 25 episodes. Cornell tomorrow night, a real game that counts. It's still not the type of game that's going to let us see Boeheim's true rotation, but it won't be long before we head down to Maui. And I'm excited to be back with you. So, thanks for sitting in for episode 1.
Nice to be here.
Fun. Have a good season.
Well, thanks for joining us. We'll be back next Thursday night at 10 for my co-host Brad Conner, Matt Verkey, our producer Jeremy Hunt. I'm Jim Sinicropi. Let's tip it off, Cuse Nation, on Friday night.